The porch light swung in the wind. In the field, a figure staggered, one hand clutching her side, each step slow and crooked like a wheel with a broken spoke. The rancher set down his coffee, crossed the dirt in 3 long strides, and caught her before she fell. Warmth soaked his palm. It was not red. Under the moon it gleamed like spilled mercury. He did not ask questions. Questions waste time when someone is bleeding. He hooked her arm over his shoulder and dragged her toward the storm cellar by the barn. Crickets went silent. Across the flats a white cone of light slid over the grass, then another, moving fast, too smooth to be a pickup. The maid's breath hitched as he lowered her down the steps. He pulled the cellar door shut just as a light swept the porch and spilled under the cracks. In the dark her eyes caught the faint glow from his phone and flared brighter than any cat. She shook her head hard. No light. He turned its screen down and felt for the old kerosene lantern by memory. His fingers found the handle, the cold tin, the little wheel. A scrape and a wick rose. He did not light it. He only breathed and listened. Above them tires hummed on the ranch road. Not studded, not mud tires. City rubber. The sound was wrong out here. The maid's dress was the cheap cotton he had bought at the feed store. It was torn at the hip. Under the rip her skin showed, not pale, not dark, but a soft matte gray that drank the faint light and gave back a sheen like stone after rain. He pressed a clean towel to the wound. The towel hissed, and a faint silver thread laced back from the edge, knitting slow. She gritted her teeth and pushed his hand away, then let it rest again. He felt the refusal and the need inside that small motion. Pride and pain met in the middle. Voices drifted from the yard. Not local. The vowels were clipped. They said his last name. They said it like a code, more numbers than letters. His jaw set. He had signed no contracts. He owed no one. He kept his land because he kept his head down. He had hired this woman 3 days ago because she was quiet and cleaned in straight lines. That matched his own. He tore the rest of the dress from the wound, working fast. The bleeding slowed to slow, like syrup crawling. Under the torn hem he saw a mark burned into her skin. At first he thought it was a scar the shape of a ring. Then he saw numbers running around the ring. Not stamped but hand-cut. He knew those numbers. He did not know why he knew them until a box inside a box in his memory opened. A tag tied to a bundle of papers in his wife's old trunk had the same string of digits, stitched in red thread. He stopped breathing for a second. The memory was sharp enough to cut in. His wife laughing in the old kitchen with her lab badge clipped to the apron, as if it were a name on a recipe. The badge held numbers too. After the fire, all he had left was the trunk that smelled like smoke for years. He had shut it and never opened it again. A knock shook the cellar door. Not polite. The metal loop rattled in its bracket. A voice spoke his name. The voice was not from this county. It was not a neighbor. It was patient in a way that made his skin crawl. He glanced at the maid. She shook her head again, harder. Her eyes begged him to be still, to be stone. He slid the lantern behind a crate and reached for the old shotgun. He had used it last in spring for snakes under the house. He thumbed the safety and aimed low. A scrape came from the hinges. Another hand tried the latch. He pictured men in black coats, clean boots, hands with soft skin. He pictured dust on their cuffs by morning. The maid tried to sit up. He pressed her shoulder down and felt muscle hard as cable. She whispered a word that was almost English. Beacon. Then another word. Wife. His skin prickled. She winced and pointed to the bandage. He peeled it back. Silver threads clung to the cloth and snapped like fine wire. On the skin, where the blood had dried in a thin crust, tiny ridges rose as if a message lay under the surface. He leaned closer and saw the letters form slowly as the wound closed. 2 letters. The same initials that were stitched into the corner of his wife's handkerchief. His breath fogged in the cool air. He did not believe in signs. He believed in cattle and wire and water and debt. Still, his hands shook. Above, gravel crunched under a heavy boot. A second voice said he was a good man who would not hide anyone. They knew about the maid. They knew about the limp. They knew too much about his quiet house. The maid grabbed his wrist with surprising strength. Her fingers were hot now, the heat of fever he knew from colts gone wrong. She pulled his hand to her throat and guided his fingers to a thin ridge under the skin like a seam. She pushed his hand down the line to a small hard knot the size of a pea. He understood. He fished his pocket knife from his jeans, flipped the blade, and held it to the lantern wick. Just a kiss of heat. He did not flame it. He only warmed the metal. Then he cut. She did not cry out. Silver wet glided over his fingers. He found the knot and freed it. A tiny black bead rolled onto the towel and clicked. He knew a tracker when he saw one, even if this one had no brand. He crushed it under the butt of the knife. It popped and spat a puff of sweet smoke. The cellar door latch turned again, slow this time. Like the hand had learned the play of the old iron, the loop lifted. He swung the shotgun toward the door. The voice outside spoke his name once more. Then it said his wife's first name. It said it in the way he had said it when he woke from a dream and reached for an empty pillow. The loop lifted higher. The hinge groaned. The maid's eyes locked on his. She mouthed one word, "Run." The cellar door began to open. The cellar door never opened. Only silence came. A long, heavy silence that pressed against his ribs. Then slow footsteps walked away, fading until the night swallowed them whole. The rancher waited. A full minute. Then another. The maid's breathing rasped like dry wind through wire. Her silver blood still shimmered faintly on his hands. He wiped them on his jeans, but the shine stayed, like guilt that wouldn't wash away. He lifted the lantern and finally lit it. The faint yellow glow trembled over her face. Beneath the grime and pain, she looked almost peaceful to calm for someone hunted. Her chest rose in steady rhythm now, slower, stronger. The skin near her wound head whereupon smooth, leaving only a thin scar like glass under the skin. He whispered, "Who's after you?" No answer. Her eyes fluttered, then closed again. He sat back, the old wooden floor creaking under his boots. For the first time in years, his mind drifted toward the small silver locket hanging under his shirt. Inside it, a single photo, his wife, smiling, eyes full of daring and light. He remembered the promise he had made to her the night before the fire took the lab. If someone ever needs help, you help them, even if it scares you. He had said yes because he thought it was a simple promise. It wasn't. He rose, opened the cellar hatch just an inch. The field lay quiet under the moon. No lights, no engines, only the long hum of crickets returning to song. He climbed out slowly, scanned the land, and closed the door again. When he came back down, she was sitting upright. He froze. Her eyes were open, glowing faintly blue now. In her hand, she held the piece of metal he had cut from her skin, turning it like a coin between her fingers. "You cut this," she said, voice rough but clear. "They will not find me now." Her English was broken, but deliberate. Each word came like she had to remember how to use a tongue not made for human speech. He nodded. "You're safe here. For now." She looked up, tilting her head as if listening to something he couldn't hear. "Safe," she repeated softly, almost like she didn't know the meaning of the word. Then her eyes went to the shotgun, to his hands, to the old lantern, and her expression changed, almost curious, almost sad. "You help me. Why?" He didn't answer right away. The words caught in his throat like dry dust. "Because someone once told me to help anyone who's running," he finally said. Her gaze softened. "A good one," she murmured. "Your mate." He flinched at the word. She noticed, dead. He nodded once. "Fire." She stared at him, the glow in her eyes dimming. "Not fire." "Cover story," she said quietly. His head snapped up. "What did you say?" She touched the wound on her side, tracing a faint ring of symbols to the mark that had burned into her skin. "This number," she whispered, "is hers. She made it." The cellar felt suddenly smaller, the air too tight to breathe. "My wife," he said, his voice hoarse. "You knew her." She nodded weakly. "She tried to free us. They stopped her. She sent message through me." She pressed her hand over her heart. Inside, he didn't understand until she reached into the pocket of her torn dress and drew out a small, glass-like shard the size of a fingernail. It shimmered faintly silver blue. Inside it, faint markings twisted like smoke. "This," she said, placing it in his hand. Her message, locked, need key her voice. He stared at it, unable to speak. His wife's voice had been gone for years. The shard pulsed faintly once, as if sensing his confusion, then went dark again. Before he could ask more, the sound of tires returned. Not one car this time. 2, maybe 3, moving slow. Headlights swept past the barn again. Someone shouted something he couldn't catch. The maid's eyes went wide. They come. They smell tracker dust. He swore under his breath, grabbed the shotgun, and helped her to her feet. She could barely stand, limping badly. He lifted her arm over his shoulder again. "We're leaving," he said. "Where?" He didn't know. Away. They pushed through the cellar door into cold night air. The moon hung low and red, a warning above the silent plains. The smell of dust and oil filled the wind. He half carried her toward the old shed by the east fence, where a rusted truck waited like a sleeping beast. He opened the passenger door, eased her inside, and turned the key. The engine coughed once, twice, then caught. He drove with headlights off, following the faint memory of the dirt road. Behind them, a light flared, not from a truck, from the sky. A column of white cut down through the clouds, silent and solid like a blade of light. The maid gasped, clutching her chest. "No run now," she said, trembling. "They find everything." He gritted his teeth and slammed the accelerator. "Then we make them chase harder." The road turned, dipped, and vanished into a dry riverbed. He took it, the tires grinding on cracked mud. The beam of light faded behind a hill. For a moment, there was nothing, only stars and breath and the low growl of the truck. Then she spoke again, softer this time, almost to herself. "She say, you would come." He turned to her. "Who?" The maid looked at him with those strange, shining eyes. "Your wife." His hands tightened on the steering wheel until the leather creaked. He wanted to ask more, but before he could, something blinked on the horizon. 3 red dots. "Moving fast in formation. Drones," she whispered. "They track heat." He reached under the seat, pulled out a torn blanket, and threw it over her. "Stay down," he said. She obeyed, whispering in a language that wasn't from this world. As the first red light swept over the truck, the maid's hand reached out from under the blanket and gripped his arm tight. He felt a pulse, a rush of energy, like static through his bones. The truck's lights flickered, then everything went black. The engine died. The world went silent. The red dots hovered, paused, and then drifted away into the sky, fooled or blinded somehow. He sat frozen, heart pounding. The maid's hand fell from his arm. She was breathing, but barely. The shard in his pocket glowed faintly again, pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. He didn't understand how or why, but one truth hit him harder than any bullet. Whatever this woman was, she carried a secret that could tear open everything he thought he knew about his wife's death, and maybe about the world itself. And somewhere, far above the stars, someone was listening. The truck coasted in silence down the dry riverbed. The engine was dead, but it still rolled, carried by a slope and fear. Dust drifted through the open window and glowed faintly in moonlight. The rancher's hands were tight on the wheel, though the vehicle no longer answered him. Beside him, the maid stirred, her breath rough but steady. Her skin glimmered faintly again, like her blood was waking up under her skin. The shard in his pocket throbbed with the same rhythm. He didn't dare touch it now. It felt alive. When the truck finally stopped, the world went quiet again. Only wind hissed between the canyon walls. He got out, boots crunching on gravel, and looked around. The trail ahead split in two. One way led up toward the cliffs. The other sank deeper into the valley where shadows swallowed everything. He heard her voice behind him. "We must go high," she said weakly. He turned. "You can barely walk." She gave a tired smile that wasn't human, but wasn't alien either. "Still can climb." He helped her out, one arm around her shoulders. The air was cooler here, sharper. Every sound echoed, pebbles falling, their footsteps, the distant hum of something mechanical far away. He didn't like that sound. It was the sound of machines searching, halfway up the hill. She stopped suddenly and pointed at the sky. At first he saw nothing, then a faint shimmer like heat on asphalt, even though the night was cold. It moved, slow, deliberate, watching. He whispered, "Drone." She shook her head. "Not theirs, ours." He didn't ask who ours meant. He didn't want the answer yet. They reached a small ridge where the land dipped, revealing a view of the valley below. The truck was just a shadow now. Beyond it, 3 red dots moved across the dirt, following their trail. He felt the weight of the shotgun on his back, useless against what hunted them. The maid sat on a rock, catching her breath. They smell heat, sound, fear, she said softly. But they not smart, only follow. He glanced at her. Then what do they do when they find us? She looked away. They call who burns. He didn't like that answer either. For a while, they said nothing. The wind howled through dry grass, and somewhere far off, thunder rolled, not natural thunder, but the low, deep kind that comes from engines in the sky. He sat beside her, pulled his jacket tighter. The stars stretched wide overhead, cold, endless, uncaring. He finally spoke. You said my wife sent you. Why? She died. The maid's eyes turned to him, their glow faint now but still strange. She lived once, she said slowly. Fire was made. Not accident. She save others. Hide message. Hide me. Her voice cracked like broken glass. They kill to stop truth. He stared at the ground. Truth about what? About them, she whispered, pointing to the sky. About what come before humans think they alone. He wanted to laugh but couldn't. The night felt too real, too heavy. His wife's memory sat in his chest like a stone that refused to move. She was a scientist, he said. She didn't believe in aliens. She believed in right thing, the maid answered. She believed in life. Her words hit him harder than a bullet. For a moment he saw his wife again. The way she used to smile when explaining something too complex for him to follow, yet simple enough for her to believe. A flash cut across the valley, a silver line arcing down. The maid's eyes widened. We move, she said. They find. He helped her up, his muscles aching. They climbed higher, toward the broken edge of the cliffs. Each step sent small rocks tumbling. The thunder behind them grew louder. At the top of the rise, they found an old mining road carved into the stone. Rusted rails and a few collapsed carts marked its beginning. The maid stopped, breathing hard, her hand pressed to her ribs. And there, she said. But under end, away. He frowned. Away. She nodded weakly. She built door. Your wife. The words froze him in place. My wife built something here. Yes, she whispered. To call help. To call home. Before he could speak, a bright red light washed over the rocks. The drones had reached the valley floor. One of them turned, scanning upward. Another followed. Then all three rose in unison, engines humming like angry hornets. The rancher grabbed her arm. Run. They ran, or tried to. She stumbled, and he half carried her again. The sound of metal wings grew louder. Rocks exploded beside them, spraying dust and stone. He didn't look back. He only ran. They reached the end of the mining road, a sheer drop into blackness. Below, the desert spread wide and endless. The drones closed in. The maid looked down, then at him. Jump, she said simply. He stared at her. You're insane. She met his eyes. No, Faith. She pulled something from her sleeve, a small, dull cube with faint blue lines crawling across its surface. Throw this when we fall. Before he could argue, she pushed off the edge, dragging him with her. The air tore past his face. The ground rushed up. He threw the cube like she said. It burst open mid-air, a shimmer, a pulse, a crack of white light. The fall slowed as if the world itself took a long breath. They landed hard but alive, sliding down a slope of soft sand. He coughed, chest burning, heart racing. The maid lay beside him, eyes open, smiling faintly. See? Faith. Before he could answer, she pointed behind him. Up on the cliff, one drone hovered, then dipped its nose and fired. A streak of red cut the night. The ground shook and flew. The shot missed them, but the shockwave sent a tremor deep into the canyon. A sound rose beneath them, low, metallic, ancient. The sand shifted, revealing a circular hatch half buried in rock. Symbols like those on her skin glowed faintly around it. She whispered, the door. He looked at her. Dust on his face, disbelief in his eyes. You mean this was real? She nodded weakly. She made it. Your wife made it. Before he could speak again, the hatch began to hum. The ground trembled, and far above, a voice, mechanical, distant, and familiar, spoke through the wind. Authorization code. Dr. L. Harlan confirmed. Welcome back. The rancher froze. That was his wife's name. Then the hatch split open, and the light inside swallowed them both. Asterisk the light swallowed everything. When the rancher opened his eyes, he was lying on cold metal. The air smelled of dust and copper. Dim blue lights traced lines along the walls, pulsing like veins. For a moment, he thought he was dreaming again of his wife's lab, the hum, the faint ozone tang of power, but this place felt older, hidden, alive. He pushed himself up slowly. The maid sat near a panel of glowing symbols, her gray skin shining faintly under the blue light. She looked smaller now, tired, but calm, as if this strange place was home to her. "What is this?" he asked. She looked up. "A door underworld. Your wife built it to send call. Long ago." He stared around. The walls curved, smooth and perfect, no bolts or seams. He touched the floor. It was warm, humming faintly beneath his palm. "You mean she built her this?" "She and others," the maid said. Before fire, her eyes lifted to the ceiling, as if she could see through it. "They make beacon, to reach sky before sky reached them." He didn't understand half of what she said, but the words "your wife" burned louder than anything else. "She's dead," he said quietly, almost to himself. "She's been gone 7 years." The maid's expression softened. "She gone from Earth," she said. "Not gone from stars." He shook his head. "You're saying she's alive?" The maid didn't answer right away. She stood, swaying a little, and pressed her hand against the wall. Lines lit up where she touched, a pattern spreading like light through ice. "Alive if beacon not break," she murmured. Then she turned to him. "I tell truth now. I was sent to find this place. You are key," he frowned. "Me, I'm no key. I mend fences, fix tractors. That's it." She smiled faintly. "You mend more than fences. You keep promise. That make you key." He didn't know how to respond. His throat felt dry, his chest tight. Somewhere deep below, a soft mechanical rumble grew louder, gears waking after years of silence. The floor shivered. Dust fell from the curved ceiling. He looked around sharply. "What did you do?" "I wake beacon," she said simply. "We have little time. Before they find us," as if her words summoned them, a faint static filled the air. The kind that means radios, trackers, men above. The rancher grabbed his shotgun on instinct, though he knew it wouldn't mean much down here. "If we send your signal, will it bring them too?" She looked at him with quiet sadness. Maybe, or maybe it'd bring her. The thought hit him like a blow. Hope, the kind he had buried years ago, stirred, fragile and sharp. He looked down at her hand, still pressed to the wall. A faint pulse of light ran from her fingertips into the metal. "What happens if we finish it?" he asked. She hesitated. "Then sky opens. They know truth, but truth is war." He stared at her, confused. "So you want to start a war?" She shook her head. "Want freedom, but war follow freedom always." A loud crack split the air above them. Dust rained down. Somewhere up top, engines roared. They had been found. The maid turned to him, face pale now. "They come. Too soon." He looked around for a way out, saw a narrow passage at the far end glowing faint green. "There, that way." She didn't move. "If I run, they find you. If I stay, they chase me." He stepped closer. "You're not staying alone." She held up a hand. "Wait, before that." "Bargain." Her eyes glowed brighter now, almost blinding in the dim blue light. "You help me reach beacon. I tell you truth of her death." He froze. "Her death, not her survival, not her life." "What do you mean?" "She live then die later," the maid said quietly. "But how, only I know." The sound of boots echoed faintly above them now, close, metallic, careful. He clenched his jaw. "You're lying." She met his gaze without fear. "You think you ready for truth? Then help me." He wanted to shout, to demand answers, but the voices above grew louder. He had no choice. He grabbed her arm and pulled her toward the passage. "Fine, we finish your beacon first. Then you talk." They ran through the narrow hall. The light followed them like a living thing. The air grew colder, sharper. Ahead, a large metal gate loomed half open. Through the gap, he saw a wide room filled with strange machines, glass towers, copper coils, and a massive dish embedded in the floor, cracked but still humming faintly. "This is it," the maid whispered. "Beacon heart." He moved to the control panel. "How do we start it?" She pointed. "Need power, old kind." "From surface." He frowned. My truck battery's dead. She shook her head. Truck not dead. Sleeping. You wake it. He didn't know what she meant until he remembered when she touched him. The truck had gone dark but hadn't died. It had changed. Before he could act, a voice echoed down the passage behind them, cold human, commanding. Harlan, step away from the machine. He froze. He knew that voice. Lyle, he whispered. A tall figure stepped into the light, his old friend from town, the one he had radioed for help. His hat brim shadowed his eyes, but his smile was the same, sharp, false, snake smooth. Didn't think I'd find you down here, Lyle said. But orders are orders. Hand her over. The maid backed away, trembling. He part of them, she whispered. The rancher raised his shotgun, heart pounding. You led them here, Lyle shrugged. You were always too good for your own good. I tried to warn you. Another explosion rocked the tunnel. More men were coming. The maid looked at the dish, then at him. Choose, she said softly. Her truth or your life. He looked between her, Lyle, and the machine that hummed like it remembered his wife's hands. He thought of the promise he made. Help whoever needs help. His choice burned through him before he even knew it. He pulled the shotgun's trigger. The blast hit the ceiling instead of Lyle, breaking the old light cables. Sparks showered down. The beacon came alive, lights spinning, hum rising. Lyle shouted, covering his face. The maid ran to the dish, pressed both hands against the surface. The light wrapped around her, silver and wild. The last thing the rancher saw before the blast threw him back was her eyes, not human, not alien, but something full of sorrow. Then the whole chamber exploded in white, and above the roar, her voice, faint but clear, spoke the words that would change everything. She waits for you. Asterisk when the light faded, he was on his back again, coughing dust. The world hummed. The metal floor still glowed in pulses, like something alive beneath it. His ears rang. Smoke drifted through the air, white, thin, almost cold. The maid lay a few feet away, half-conscious, silver blood tracing lines down her neck. The beacon still hummed faintly, its glow dimming but not dead. He pushed himself up, chest aching. Lyle was gone. Only his hat lay near the tunnel mouth, burnt through the brim. The other men were nowhere to be seen. The air smelled scorched, like lightning on sand. The rancher staggered to the maid's side. Hey, you still with me? Her eyes opened slowly, dull now but still shining from inside. It worked, she whispered. Beacon, awake. He looked round. That explosion could have killed us. She smiled faintly. Almost did. But you alive. That matter. He knelt beside her, wiping grime from her forehead. You said she waits for me. What did you mean? Her lips trembled. You still not ready? I'm done waiting for ready. His voice cracked. Tell me. She didn't speak. Instead, she reached toward the machine's base, to a glass panel half buried in dust. Underneath it lay something familiar. He brushed off the grime and froze. It was a photograph. Old, folded, burned at the corners. His wife, smiling, standing next to the same machine. This beacon, her hand resting on its edge like it was her child. Under the photo, a signature, Dr. L. Harlan. Test log no. 1. His chest tightened. He remembered her handwriting, her laugh, the last night before the fire, when she had kissed his forehead and said, if something happens, remember, light travels even when we don't. He swallowed hard. She built this. All of it. The maid nodded weakly. She built hope. And Cage. He looked at her sharply. Cage. She thought she'd save us, the maid whispered. But beacon call both sides. Her message never reached right ones. He frowned. What are you saying? The maid's voice wavered. They heard. The wrong ones. They come to use it, not answer. Before he could respond, the tunnel behind them echoed again. A low metallic creak, then footsteps. Slow, careful, human. He grabbed the shotgun and aimed toward the dark. A shadow stepped through the haze. It was Lyle, burned along one arm, face cut, but alive. Well, I'll be damned, he rasped. You woke the thing. The rancher's finger tightened on the trigger. Stay where you are. Lyle smiled, teeth white through the soot. You think you're the hero in this? She played us all. Your wife, the maid, the whole damn thing. I've seen the files. The rancher didn't lower the gun. What files? The ones marked Harlan Project. Lyle stepped closer. She wasn't just building a beacon. She was building a door. A bridge for them. He pointed to the maid. And she's proof they already crossed. The maid struggled to sit, wincing. Lie, she gasped. Lyle laughed. You don't even know, do you? You're a copy, sweetheart. A machine made from her research. You think you're alive, but you're just another experiment that ran too far. The rancher stared at him, shaking his head. You're lying. Lyle tossed a small object at his feet, a metal tag, charred but legible. Engraved on it, Project Echo Unit 3, Harlan variant. His stomach turned. The numbers around the tag, they matched the ones he'd seen burned into her skin. The maid looked at the tag, her face blank at first, then slowly breaking. No, she whispered. No, I remember. She touched my face, said I was free. I remember her voice. She programmed that, Lyle said coldly. She gave you dreams so you'd believe, so you'd protect her secret. The rancher lowered the gun a little, his heart splitting into directions, one toward the woman who'd died for truth, the other toward the being who'd bled for it. He looked at the maid. You feel pain, don't you? She nodded faintly. Yes. He looked back at Lyle. Then she's alive. Lyle sneered. She's a lab trick. She's life, the rancher said quietly, leveling the shotgun again. And I keep promises. Lyle raised his hands, taking a slow step back. You don't know what you're protecting. That beacon's signal didn't call help. It called harvesters. The same ones who burned her lab. They're coming again. Before the rancher could react, the floor shuddered. A deep rumble shook the chamber. The beacon's dish turned on its axis, light spilling upward like a column into the ceiling. The maid gasped. Too late. It answered. The ceiling cracked open, and a shaft of pure white tore through the dust. The rancher covered his eyes. Lyle screamed. The light lifted him, not burning, not breaking, just taking. Then silence. Only the hum of the beacon and the maid's labored breathing. He rushed to her side again. Stay with me. She smiled faintly, silver streaks drying on her cheek. I lied too, she whispered. His heart stilled. What? I was not only sent to find Beacon. I was sent to find you. She said Yao would finish what she couldn't. Her hand trembled as she reached into her pocket and pulled out the shard again, now glowing bright blue, alive with symbols. This is her truth. He took it, and the light flared. A voice came from nowhere and everywhere, warm, human, and familiar. If you're hearing this, I didn't make it back, but he will. Our child will. Protect them. They'll come for you both. The sound cut off. The maid closed her eyes. She mean me, she whispered. She mean us. The rancher sat frozen, holding the shard tight. The beacon's hum grew into a steady rhythm, not machine, but heartbeat. He looked toward the tunnel, where the last echo of Lyle's scream had faded. The ground trembled again, not from engines, but something far larger moving above. The maid's eyes fluttered open one last time. They come now. You choose, break beacon, or follow her light. The roof cracked, spilling dust and stars together. He stood, torn between destruction and discovery, grief and wonder. Then a sound filled the air, deep, distant, like thunder rolling over metal. He looked up. Through the broken roof, a shape descended, vast, silver, alive. Not a drone, not a plane. Something older. The beacon responded, rising in brightness, matching its rhythm. The rancher whispered to himself, Dear God, what did she build? The maid's voice, fading, answered him softly, Home. The sky was opening. The old metal roof peeled back like paper, the air vibrating with a deep, humming force that shook dust from the rafters. The rancher stood beneath it, frozen in disbelief, shotgun loose in his hand. Above him hovered a vast silver shape, smooth and silent, its edges glowing faint blue like lightning trapped in glass. It made no sound, yet the earth itself seemed to tremble at its presence. The maid, still on the floor, lifted her head. The blue light from the beacon washed over her face, making her look half human, half something holy. She whispered, It hurt us. The rancher took a step back, shielding his eyes. What is that thing? The answer, she said softly. Or the end. The ship lowered slowly, wind spiraling around the open chamber. Machines along the walls began to light up, one by one, as if waking from a long sleep. Symbols danced across the floor, the same ones he had seen burned into her skin. He felt the shard in his pocket pulsing again, like a heartbeat trying to sync with his own. He pulled it out. The voice of his wife, faint, distant, broken, echoed from it once more. If it comes, do not fear. The light remembers. He swallowed hard. Light remembers? What does that mean? The maid looked at him through tired eyes. It means she left you key. Not to open, to end. The words sent a chill through him. You said this would bring her back. The maid's expression softened. Sometimes, to bring someone back, you must let go of everything else. Before he could speak again, a beam from the ship swept through the opening, bathing the beacon in white. The hum grew deafening. Sparks rained down. The beacon's core cracked, splitting open to reveal a heart of pure light swirling with shapes too quick to name. The maid struggled to stand. They connect now. I must guide it. You can barely move, he said, catching her arm. She looked up at him, her face calm. If I don't, they destroy everything. Your land, your sky, your kind. He hesitated. She looked so small against the light, yet she carried something far greater than he could understand. Finally, he nodded. Tell me what to do. Power, she said, pointing weakly toward the truck battery lying near the tunnel mouth. We need its heart. He ran for it, boots slipping on the dust. The noise was rising, a low, endless hum that shook the ribs of the earth. He grabbed the battery, dragging it across the floor. Cables dangled like veins. Sparks leapt when he connected them to the beacon's base. The machine roared to life. Blue fire raced along the walls, spilling through the cracks, climbing up toward the ship above. The maid stood in the beam's center, arms lifted, silver blood running from her fingers like threads of light. Stop. A voice thundered from the sky, not human, not alien, something in between. The words came through vibration, not sound. Unauthorized activation detected. Cease transmission. The rancher froze. The maid didn't move. The beam intensified, wrapping her in blinding white. Her voice rose above the roar, not loud, but strong. She said humans worth saving. She was right. The ship's beam flickered. The ground split. The rancher fell to one knee, shielding his face. What's happening? He shouted. She fight them still, the maid cried. From beyond. Her code live inside beacon. He stared at the swirling light, and for an instant, through it, he saw her, his wife, standing within the heart of the beacon, her hand pressed against the light as if through glass, her eyes full of love and grief and unspoken words. He reached out, trembling. Lydia. Her voice came clear and human. You shouldn't have come here. His breath caught. You're alive. She shook her head slowly. Not anymore. But what I started isn't done. Help her. Protect Earth. Then let me go. He wanted to scream, to ask how, to beg her to stay, but she faded as quickly as she'd come. The light shuddered. The ship above cracked open, lightning streaking across its surface. The maid turned to him, her body glowing brighter now, edges blurring like she was burning from the inside. It's breaking through. If it connects fully, no one's safe. He looked around wildly. What do I do? Cut power. But you die too. He stared at her, this being who wasn't supposed to feel but clearly did. She smiled faintly, a tear of silver running down her cheek. You humans always choose love even when it hurts. Before he could move, she stumbled toward the beacon's core and pressed both hands into the light. No, he shouted. The chamber erupted, a soundless blast of white. Energy rippled outward, lifting him off his feet and throwing him against the wall. The beacon shattered, the ship above split in two, and the light turned from blue to gold. When he opened his eyes again, silence. The ship was gone. The ceiling above was torn open to a sky full of calm stars. The beacon lay in ruins, smoke curling from its edges. The maid was lying at the center, motionless. He crawled to her, every muscle aching. She was cold, still, but peaceful, a faint smile frozen on her lips. He touched her hand. The silver veins beneath the skin had faded, replaced by pale human color. For the first time, she looked completely human. Something small gleamed beside her, the shard. He picked it up. It glowed once, weakly, then played a final message. If you are hearing this, the light has chosen. Do not grieve. We are part of the same story now. The voice was hers, Lydia's, his wife's. Tears blurred his vision. He looked up through the broken roof. The night sky stretched wide and silent, the stars burning like witnesses. The beacon's hum had stopped, but somewhere deep inside, he felt it still alive. Faint as a heartbeat. He whispered, "You saved them all, didn't you?" A soft breeze stirred the dust. No answer, just quiet. But in that quiet, he thought he heard a whisper, carried by wind and light together. Not all. One still left. The rancher looked down at the maid's body and froze. Her fingers twitched. The night was quiet again, but it was not the same world anymore. The rancher knelt beside the maid, the dust settling around them like ash. The beacon was gone, cracked open and hollow, its light now scattered among the stars above. Her hand moved once more. Then again. Slowly, she turned her head. Her eyes opened, not glowing blue this time, but human brown. Deep, tired, alive. He stared in disbelief. You're breathing." Her voice came weak but clear. "It hurts, but I am." He helped her sit up. "You should be dead." She smiled faintly. "I was, then something gave me back." He frowned. "The beacon." She shook her head. "No, her." He looked up at the sky, still burning faint with gold traces where the ship had vanished. "Lydia," he whispered. The maid nodded. "She left piece of her inside light. When I stopped it, she gave it to me. Her last strength." He didn't speak for a long time. The wind blew softly through the broken roof, carrying the smell of dust and metal. It smelled like endings and beginnings. Finally, he said, "You said she wanted me to choose. Between what?" The maid's gaze drifted to the sky. "Between staying and following her." He blinked. "Following her." "The beacon didn't just call the ship," she said quietly. "It opened the way. There's another side, beyond clouds and stars. She waits there. But if you go, you don't come back." He looked down at his calloused hands, the same ones that had built fences, lifted hay, held his wife's hand under the porch light so many years ago. "I've got nothing left here," he said softly. "Just ghosts." She shook her head. "You have the land, the light, life. If you leave, who remembers?" He gave a bitter smile. "And if I stay, who believes?" She looked at him then, not as machine, not as alien, but as something completely human. "Belief is not seeing stars. It's keeping fire when sky is dark." He laughed once, quietly, shaking his head. "You talk like her. She talked through me," the maid whispered. "She always did. I was made from her memories, her hope. I carried her last wish, to bring you here, to let you see." He felt tears sting his eyes again, unashamed this time. So all this, the attack, the beacon, the ship, it was her way of saying goodbye. The maid smiled faintly. "No, her way of saying choose." He stood, looking around at what was left of the world he thought he knew, his ranch, half buried under the dirt of 1,000 secrets. The sky stretched wide above, full of quiet stars that seemed to listen. "Can you walk?" he asked. "Maybe," she said, struggling to her feet. He helped her up. Her skin was warm, not cold metal anymore. She leaned on him, breathing slow. They stepped out through the broken wall into the open night. The horizon glowed faint orange, dawn creeping in. The first sunrise since everything changed. She looked at it with wonder, as if seeing it for the first time. "Beautiful," she said. "I never saw it before." He nodded. "It's always like that, but you only notice when you think you might not again." For a long moment, neither spoke. The world was quiet, waiting. Then a low hum came from the ground. The beacon's remains pulsed once, a faint heartbeat of light. The maid turned toward it. "It still lives," she whispered. He frowned. "I thought you shut it down." "I did. But she changed it." The light grew stronger, twisting upward like a small tornado of gold dust. Then it took shape, a faint silhouette of a woman, clear for only seconds. "Lydia." Her voice drifted on the wind, soft but unmistakable. "Both of you made the choice I couldn't. You saved them all. But there is one more door." The light shimmered, forming a path stretching into the sky, a glowing thread rising higher and higher until it vanished into the stars. The maid stepped closer, eyes wide. "She opens way again." He shook his head. "For me. For both," she said. "She wants us to decide." He looked at the light, then back at the earth. his barn, his house, the land he had fought to keep. The ghosts of his life lingered there. But above, in that golden path, was peace he'd never known. He turned to the maid. "What about you?" She smiled faintly. "I was born to follow light, but I want to see what comes after dawn, just once." He nodded. "Then you stay." She blinked. "And you?" He looked at the path again, eyes wet but steady. She waited too long. "I owe her one last dance." Before she could speak, he stepped forward into the light. The glow wrapped around him, lifting him gently from the ground. The air filled with the sound of wind, music, and something older than both. A hum that felt like home. The maid covered her mouth, tears streaking down her face. "Goodbye," she whispered. The light rose higher, carrying him upward. For a heartbeat, his silhouette merged with hers in the glow. Then both faded into the stars. Silence, only the wind remained. The maid stood alone in the ruins of the beacon. Dawn washing over the land. She looked to the horizon, where the first sunlight touched the hills, and smiled. She knelt, pressed her hand to the soil, and whispered. He found her. The earth beneath her palm pulsed once warm, alive. Then she rose, turned toward the lightening sky, and walked toward the sunrise.